Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Fit Talk, pulling pits and opinions with your host, Gunny G, where service members help service members, period. Follow, like, subscribe everywhere you get your podcast and on most social media platforms. Let us know how we're doing. Any criticism is good criticism, I promise. We got a special guest. He's going to introduce himself. We're going to get right into it because I'm excited about this session. By the name of Steve Leonard, Mr. Doctrine Man. I can't wait to get started. I'm super excited. Sir, introduce yourself. Let them know where you're from, professional bio, so to speak, when you started, when you retired, all that good jazz in between. Give them information so that they know who you are.
So make it really simple. You already introduced me. I'm Steve Leonard. I ran the whole Doctrine Man thing for about 16 years. A professional biography. I'm from Northern Idaho, grew up there, joined the Army through Army ROTC at the University of Idaho in 1986, 87 timeframe. Did 28 years in the Army, which was about 24 more years than I planned on. But you know how it goes. Once you're in, right? And served around the world. I think I touched most of the continents other than Antarctica. I spent a lot of time overseas. I went to Iraq 3 times, did the Gulf War thing. Duty stations, same thing, all over the place. You have Korea, all over the continental United States. You just go where you go, right? And I had this conversation with somebody the other day who was still serving, a Navy officer, and we were just kind of commiserating. He's hit the 10-year mark, and it hit him that, hey, we move every 2 years. I'm like, yep. You learn to travel light and be flexible, and so that's what it is. And so I grew up as a logistics officer, spent about half my career as a logistics officer, and then transitioned to the strategy side later on in my career, where I could probably have a little bit more influence and impact on the institution and how things worked and how things ran. But I would proudly say that I was raised by NCOs and warrant officers. So when people talk to me, that comes out, and I don't necessarily sound like your average officer when I start to talk, because I say the things that we always say, so that non-commissioned influence and the warrant officer influence is really strong in who I am. I've written about that in the past, that it kind of shapes me in a way that makes me a little bit odd, and drove that sense of humor that you saw. So the whole Doctrine Man thing is an outgrowth of that. It's the kind of, I don't give a shit attitude that I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to do what's right by people, and I'll deal with the consequences on my own. And that was always a driving influence that, my first platoon sergeant, I quote that guy 40 years later, all the things that he used to say to me, it's about them, it's not about you. If you're getting your ass chewed once in a while, that's just part of the job, just roll with it. How all that thing shaped who I became, and my attitude and my philosophy on leading. So all of that drives there. And I think that kind of covers the initial parts there. It's I'm like every other person who spent a career in the military. You go everywhere. We moved 16 times in 28 years. You mentioned billets. So, the typical kind of billets: platoon leader, company commander, a lot of time as a field grade staff officer, doing different things, commanding at different levels in different places, and, leading formations, and lots of deployment time, lots of rolling the sleeves up and getting my hands dirty, and loving life as a result. You get a certain attitude, it rolls, and it's good for us.
Absolutely. I'll tell you what, you mentioned, and I'm a weaver, right? I like to weave things back in. We'll go this way, we'll go that way with the conversation.
Yeah.
You said you do right by people. That is not something that's very favorable in the uniform we wear, period. And I think in any branch. I mean, not all branches are the same, but as far as the Army and the Marine Corps, I think if you do right by people, it's not, you're gonna hit some brick walls sometime in your career.
Well, yeah.
Elaborate on that piece, sir. Right by people, but
so
the
that's
walls you
just,
face.
that was something that was ingrained in me early on. Having a platoon sergeant that was the right kind of platoon sergeant, had the right ideas about taking care of people and getting to know our people and getting to know our troops on a personal level. So, that I'll go back to that touch point. If you remember the old movie, Heartbreak Ridge, and the fact that Clint Eastwood playing Gunny Highway in that movie, he knew his people. He knew them on a personal level, knew about kids, families, whatever. That was the world that I grew up in, was that it wasn't enough just to have Lance Corporal G's name written down in a green notebook. It was, I got to know everything about you. I got to know where you're from, what matters to you, how to deal with you on a personal level. to lead you correctly. And so that was always driven that you have to be able to do that. You can't be just somebody who keeps it written down on a list and said, oh, Gunny, okay, good. You're here, you're here. No, because everybody's a little different. Everybody's driven, motivated differently. They've got different things going on in their lives. And it helps to know all that to be effective at leading. And that really, that what it comes down to is what we're trusted with as leaders in the military. We're trusted with people's sons and daughters, their brothers, their uncles, their cousins. People trust their blood and treasure with us. So it's important that we take good care of them, at least as the best we can. And the whole idea with selfless service is that you put them before yourself. I mean, that's kind of like what it is. And in the process, yeah, you're going to run into people that don't like that pushback that say, hey, no, I told you I want this done. And you're like, no, I don't think a 24-hour op is a good idea right now because we don't have the people to do it. We're not going to get the work done. I'll work them long, but I won't work them 24 hours, that kind of thing. Oh, well, that's not what I want done. Well, you know what? I'm not going to do that. Then I'll take the ass chewing for it. But I'm going to do the smarter thing, take care of people, get them home with their families, do this or that, put them first, and look out for their well-being, because when I really need them to show up to bat, if they know I've taken care of them in the past, they're going to show up to bat. If they know that they're going to get screwed every time they turn around, when I really need to lean on them, they ain't going to be there. And that's something that you can't teach young leaders enough, is that if you take care of them, they'll take care of you. If you screw them over, guess what? When you need them, they ain't going to be there. And you're just not going to be successful. Your success as a leader is rooted in your willingness and ability to take care of the people who work for you.
That's good. Sir. Wow. I hope that if you're listening, you listen hard, because it's the hard truth. They do right by you if you do right by them, and they come first. You've already been in this gun club long enough to know how to take care of yourself. I will say, just to finish off there, you said you do whatever the hell you want. 16 years of Doctrine Man. Why did that? And again, I'm going to weave it back and forth. Why did that stop, though? I loved it. I love the little cartoons, being sarcastic, little butthole. I love it.
So it's like anything else. I did it for about 16 years, and from stem to stern, 16 years, worked that. That was something that consumed an incredible amount of time every single day. And I just got to a point, and it was about June of last year, I think, where I said, you know what? It's time to sunset this thing and do something different. And really what I'm trying to do differently, and I spend a lot more time on other forms of social media than I used to. So like if you go to LinkedIn, there's a lot more professional content there that I do. And my following is kind of migrating onto there. I'll still create an additional a new cartoon once in a while, throw it out there. It's not the same, but it's probably more writing and talking about our profession than making fun of our profession. And at a certain point, after you've been out for 10 years, it's like, how relevant is this? I can still be, I can still catch some of the right things, but not as much. Not like when I see it every day. But at the end of the day, I just got to a point where I thought, I can use that time more better. I could put that to better use. And, it's kind of nice. It's kind of weird, because after doing that every day, literally through deployments, through everything, never missing a beat, and then stepping away from it, it was kind of like getting off, like losing your spit cup on a deployment. You just don't know what to do or where to go with yourself. But that's where it's been, and it's kind of nice. There were some other factors behind it. You know how odd social media can be sometimes. And I had gone through a period of about 6 months with Facebook where I would get suspended for posting like normal news stories. Like, I'm going to post a normal story about the military and something that happened in this place or that place. And they'd come back and say, you're suspended for a week because that violates our community standards. That's a story about, a Marine Corps aircraft going down in the Sinai, and then never get a response. And wait a week, it popped back up. And after about the third or fourth time with that, I realized I was either dealing with idiots or artificial intelligence, not that there's a difference, and just said, hey, that helps make the decision, because you end up fighting the system all the time. And you want to argue with somebody, but nobody ever responds. And he's like,
Yes.
you tell them, hey, this doesn't violate community standards. Like nobody responds, nobody replies, nothing changes. And then you get these continual warnings every time, like, oh, your content is being reported. Like, who reports the content that I put out there? Because I don't put anything out that's not legitimate, not confirmed through standard media. And they never complained about the cartoons, but it was this, I'd pull something off the Marine Corps Times and post it. By God, I get reported for it. Like, how is that offensive? It's just a story out of the Marine Corps Times. There's nothing offensive about it.
Absolutely. I get what you're saying. I will say that when you're passionate about something, it does take a lot of time. Just like this, right? So they moved the flagpole in terms of, what it was about. And then now it's just kind of a hobby of mine that I love. I get to network, meet new people from different backgrounds. I got you on, Mr. Famous, Doctrine Man. If you don't know, now you know, right? I will say, well, and we'll end it here with Doctrine Man. When is the memoir going to come out? When's the little book, cartoon book going to come out?
Oh God, you can get some cartoon books on Amazon. There's a handful of the books, but they're straight cartoons. And so I have been looking at the option of the idea of doing exactly that. And I haven't quite fleshed out the idea, but I've talked to a couple of different publishers about, okay, let's take all the leadership lessons that I learned over the course of 28 years and package those up with cartoons, but make them original cartoons. So you kind of get the context of, okay, let's make it light, but informative at the same time. I just know it's going to be a lot of work. So I'm going to set aside a year and do that. And I don't know if it's going to be this year or next year or last year. Obviously not last year, but it's going to come. And I just got to figure it all out. But I want to do that because it's all those, I write about this stuff every week, the lessons that we've learned. And then I stop and think, I could do this in a cartoon too, pull it into a humorous piece. And then you've got the written part, you've got a little cartoon, and it all comes together. And I think that would actually be useful and would probably hit all the right points. People who don't like cartoons can ignore the cartoons and read the stuff. People who want the cartoons, you get the cartoons. People who want both, it's all there. And
Absolutely.
But I have been thinking about that a lot, and I think it's on one of my whiteboards in here.
I can't wait. All I know is that I want the first copy outside of family once it comes out. I would love the first copy.
Absolutely.
Let me know. I'll proudly read it.
As I sit here today, I swear I will send you the first copy when I get there.
You talk about 20 plus years of service. I always say 20 is a hobby, 30 is a profession, but you talk about being all over the place. Did you always have your family with you? Were there times of separation, obviously during deployments, things like that?
Yeah, there's always times of separation. It's funny that you say this because of the 3 kids that we have, 2 of them have made comments since the holidays. We were having a conversation and they said, yeah, but you weren't around that much. And it kind of stings a little bit, but it's the reality of, the more senior you get, really, the less you're around. You're here, you're there, you're TDY, you're somewhere other than home. And my wife actually kept a calendar that she didn't tell me about for a long time. And she kept track of every time I went to the field or a combat training center or deployed or whatever. We hit around the time that I had decided to drop my retirement paperwork. She throws this out. You have been gone for more than 10 years of our marriage.
Wow.
And you think about 10 years away from home. That's a lot. And that's 10 years where you're not at home, you're not at birthdays, you're at the holidays, you're not at big family events, you miss like things. I was in Europe when my father passed away, all the kinds of things that you're just not there for. You're gone, you're somewhere else, you're doing mission. And yeah, so it's funny because that is a topic that we've been discussing a lot lately that, I think I mentioned like how we had this dog for 12 years and I barely remember her. And it's like, Dad, you were never home. That's probably why I don't remember her dog that well.
I was going to say, thank you for lighting up the mood because I'm about to start loop, right? How are you dealing with now that you always knew that you were not home. We always know that. But how are you dealing with it now? How does it affect you now? I know you can't do things. You can't take things back. You can't do them over. What are you doing now to get that quality time back?
What can you do? One of the reasons why I retired when I did and came to the University of Kansas, where I'm at now, is that my daughter and one of my sons, they were in school here. And I knew that if I took a job at KU, that would give me the opportunity to start to make up that time. And so my daughter and I would go have coffee. We would hang out. We would go to lunch, breakfast, whatever. So we would build that time back in. And yeah, you can't make up for the past, but you can definitely work towards the future and really get to know each other on a different level. But I still feel it. It's funny because I was thinking about this morning. This semester, I hit my 3,000th student that's come through my class. And I realized a couple of years ago that those students as undergrads are 20, 21, 22. They're like kids to me. So I spend time with them and I treat them like I would my own kid, kind of like you do your troops, your Marines, you kind of get a little bit of affection for them. And I've realized that they're almost replacements for my own kids. So I'm giving them the attention that I didn't always give my own kids and the advice. And I feel it. I noticed that, hey, I get bonded with these kids really quick. And it's like, that's the kids that I didn't get to spend time with. Yeah. It makes graduation a lot harder. So when they leave, it's kind of sad because like having your kids leave the house again, but that's the only way I think I found to make up for all that lost time is that, okay, now I'm bringing food into, a class full of 50 or 60 kids and we sit around and we talk about life and they get the dad advice from somebody who's not their dad, but that's,
that's good.
That's the best way I can make up for it. Other than I try to spend more time with my kids, but now they're all grown up. So, they do their own thing.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I think you already touched it. And I don't want to beat a dead horse. It's a unfortunate dead horse, right? That we as service members alike, all branches alike, we suffer, right? Especially at families. The families have to figure it out when we're gone, right? That's just the reality of it. Tell the young people that decide to bring family into service, tell them one thing now that you should have done differently. It's a different outcome, right? It still would have been the same outcome. You still would have been gone, but what could you have done differently at the beginning to set your family up for success? Set theirs up for success.
Oh, that's a good question. And I actually learned this one later on. If you know by virtue of what we do that we're going to lead kind of a nomadic lifestyle. We're going to move a lot, but you're also going to be gone a lot. And the better you prepare your family for, doing the basics of life in your absence, the better off they are. My wife was usually really good. She learned how to maneuver all the different systems that we deal with, and she survived. But by the time I had about 10 years in, I was in a position where, for example, when we invaded Iraq in 2003, I knew well in advance that we were going to go. I never said a word to the family, but by then I knew, okay, I can do things to help prepare for my absence and better prepare them for my absence, knowing that time is going to eventually come, that we're eventually going to get told to pack up and go. But you need to learn to do that sooner. Just assume that you're going to be gone a lot and make sure that, they have access to everything they have access to, that the cars are well taken care of, that you don't exit stage left, to go to Poland for a year and leave a hoopty in the parking lot outside your house that dies a week after you leave and they can't sign checks or they don't have access to credit cards. You have to make sure that they don't need you. And that's the hardest part for most of us, is letting go to the point where they can live without you. That's where they're at their best, that they're independent of you enough that when you go, they miss you, but life goes on. And that was really the biggest thing. And that's a hard one to teach people, that because, you don't necessarily want to do that as the service member, as the sponsor. You're used to controlling a lot of things, and letting go of that control actually helps them prepare for when you will be gone. And what if you don't come back? It's too often, you see, it's all the little things. How many times have you gone through the DD-93s and you find out that, okay, somebody left their insurance to a stripper, out on Victory Boulevard somewhere instead of their spouse? All those little things matter. I know, right? All those little things matter, that you have to do all that in advance, and you have to just assume that your family members are going to need to survive and thrive in your absence, and what you can do to make that better for them. Everything that you can do to make that better for them. Write all that shit down. Access to everything. You don't leave them a you-go with no doors parked in front of your quarters. Things like that. Little things. All those little things matter.
Yeah, that's good. It's really good. Yeah, I think you're trying to make me cry, Steve. I don't know. You're apostate. You're going to get me there. You're going to get me there. I promise you.
The Marines don't cry.
That's true. That's true. We cry inside because it just, all right. So
Yeah,
but I have a
sure.
17-year-old, 13-year-old, and I'm starting over fresh 3-1, and new one's coming in pretty soon. Probably next month. Yeah, I know. I'm freaking slayed. But I'll tell you what, that's really good information. And it's good to know that, hey, you want to prepare for success. And that's what we try to teach our kids. It's like, hey, be independent. Did you take your trash out? No, but we'll go take it out, right? Because when you on your own, are you going to leave it there and it's going to stink and it's going to do all these things? So small example, but the principle remains. Appreciate the gouge. It's really good.
Absolutely remains the same.
We hit Doctrine Man. We hit family. We hit deployments. We're about to hit transition from uniform to civilian. I know you were ready. I know there was a lot of things I think there was primary catalyst to get you out and drop papers. But how was your transition from uniform to civilian for you?
That's a great question. And that's something I love to talk about, because that first year, and we were talking to my wife about this maybe 2 hours ago, that first year is always hard. And, I think what makes transition so tough is that all the services do the same thing. They have a standard design program that's focused on the E4 and below crowd that just kind of churns people out. So the more senior you are, the less relevant that transition experience becomes, which will be scary for you, because when your time comes, you're probably going to get a shitty transition experience. And so what that does is that makes you less prepared for what follows. And then when you hit the ground, the first thing you lose is that sense of team that you have, because you're surrounded by people who all wear the same thing every day, and you've got that sense of team around you. You lose that, and then you lose that sense of purpose, because the mission gives us purpose, and you lose those two things. And that's that first year, you have to find those things again. You have to find your tribe, and you got to find a purpose. And if you don't, then you become really vulnerable to not just ending up in a bad place, but you can be, there's groups out there that love to find the lonely veteran that doesn't know what the hell they're doing with their life and give them a purpose that suits them, but not you. Sadly, you saw some of those people on January 6th, 4 years ago. Some of the people that stormed the Capitol, you were like, that's just some poor bastard that got out of the Air Force or got out of the Army, didn't know what they were doing. And somebody said, hey, let's go to Capitol, let's go do this. And they did. And then they find themselves, now they're pardoned, but, found themselves in a world of hurt for the next 4 years. Making transition work means that the best way to do that, and I've told this to a lot of people, is you find somebody who's transitioned in the last 5 years, you go take them for lunch, a cup of coffee, whatever, you go hang out, and then you pick their brain. And they will tell you all the things that they learned from hard lessons that nobody in a transition system or process tells you. The big two are, that sense of team, that sense of purpose. But I was very fortunate. I was sitting in my office. I was the G3 of a 3-star command, and our G6, our comms guy, walks in one day, and he says, "Colonel, start taking notes." And I'm looking at him like, what? And he starts running down this list of things. You're going to retire. You need to do this, 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 this. And then he left. And I went and did this, 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 this. And there were things that were never mentioned during out processing, during transition ever. And they were all things that helped smooth the transition. And they were all things that he had screwed up when he transitioned. And because he'd been out for like 3 or 4 years. And so I said, go find somebody who's got the scar tissue from transition recently, and they will save your life on the backside. The other thing is, don't worry about the first job. Most veterans don't stick around for their first job after a year. Land someplace where you figured things out. The outside world is always a lot different. I stayed in the same job. Well, I stayed in the same place, but not the same job. Within a year, I had a different job. Stayed in the same university system, had a different job. Almost immediately started working on, this is okay, but I'd rather do something different. And let's see what we can do to get over here. But, you give that first job gives you the space to figure out what you want. And if it's not the right job, it's okay, because you have to understand it's just the job. It's a place to plant your foot until you figure out where you're going to step next. And find a mentor, be satisfied not staying in your first job, be true to yourself. A lot of us get out and we try to be what we think other people want us to be. Don't. Just be yourself. I use that as an example of the way I talk, the way I communicate, and the way I interact with people, which was shaped by 3 decades of wearing a uniform and dealing with troops, right? All of a sudden I'm around civilians and I'm trying to act like a normal person. I'm not normal. Not at all. Not in any way, shape, or form, right? You can't do what we do for that long and still be normal. You're going to be you. You're going to have your rough edges. It's okay. Don't do things that make you end up with, in the office with somebody from human resources, from the AG, whatever. But be true to yourself. Keep in shape. That's always a hard one. How many people have you seen who got out and decided, I'm going to eat 3 Big Macs a meal, every meal for a year? And I'm going to grow a beard. I'm going to grow my hair long and get a man bun. Like, if you want to do that, that's great. But if you want to have self-respect, keep yourself in shape, figure out ways to still do PT, hold on to that part of you that gets up early every day.
And don't get a man bun.
I still have the same short haircut that I had when I got, I can't grow my hair long. I never grew a beard. I didn't try. But that whole thing with getting up early, and I've shared this with people, that you're probably too young to remember it, but the old commercial about be all you can be, the Army, we do more before 9 o'clock in the morning than most people do all day. That holds true for every service. Hold on to that, because that gives you a huge competitive advantage over everybody else. Because when those people are standing in line at Starbucks at 8:30 on their way to work, you've already got 2 hours in the bank of work, and you're thrust ahead, you're awake, you're ready to go, you've worked out, you're pumped, you're good to go. That's a competitive advantage that people recognize. Even on the outside, they'd be looking at you and saying, geez, look at that guy. He's fired up and ready to go. For example, I always teach at 8 o'clock in the morning. And 8 o'clock in the morning to a college student is like horrible, right? That they hate to have 8 o'clock classes. I hit 8 o'clock class. I already have at least 2 cups of coffee in me, and I've worked out by the time I walk into class, and my energy level is way up here. And those 8 classes fill because they know they're not going to walk into a class with somebody sleepy. They're going to come into a class where I've got AC/DC playing in the classroom. We're fired up. We're ready to go, and we're going to do shit from the minute they walk in the door. And that, I like that. I'm usually done teaching by lunchtime, which means I can go do what I need to do, and coffee starts to wear off. Everything's cool. But that whole get up early, get out, do things, work out. And I'm talking about some of this stuff with students on Monday, because I have them do like some goal setting stuff. Every class I do, you're going to do some goal setting. And I throw up the examples of I go into a new year and I have goals set already. Like this year, I'm going to run 155Ks during the year, which, that doesn't really seem like a lot for somebody who's already in uniform. That's basically running 3 days a week. Hey, but when you've been out for 10 years, that's a lot of running. And, so you say that to the kids, it's hey, this is my goal. I'm going to do this many 10Ks. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And that whole goal-driven life thing gives you purpose, keeps your mind occupied, keeps you growing, keeps you active. Those are all really good things as veterans to carry through, because they keep us alive, they keep us young, they keep us fresh. And it also, that kind of thing makes you more resilient, honestly. And I remember we mentioned something about resilience early on, and that, it's really easy to lose your resilience after you get out. The minute you let yourself go and decide, hey, I'm not going to run, I'm not going to work out, I'm not going to do this, all your resilience goes. And that stuff, then the first time the things start to go bad, it just starts a cascade and you can't turn back. So be as aggressive after you transition. about how you take care of yourself and how you grow and develop. It's just a launch point. You'll have more time to do all those things now. So now is a really important time. And that makes you more resilient. It makes you more fun to be around. I hate to say it, but as caffeinated as I am every day, I have no problem at work entertaining people, not just students, but the people around me, because you come in with all that energy. I bet you there are probably 2 or 3 people out of my entire building who work out before they show up in the morning. But that makes a huge difference. You're used to it because we all do it, right? But when you're in an environment where people don't do it and you hold on to that, that just makes life so much better.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's that whole piece that drives resilience. And by doing so and being fit and active and alive, when shit goes wrong, which it inevitably does, it's a lot easier to deal with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and now you're going to get me going, because I read an article the other day and posted on LinkedIn with the whole Nishki thing where it says, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And it was the CEO of NVIDIA talking about how people who lack resilience stay in their comfort zone and they don't venture outside their comfort zone. And he said, those people need to go out and find out what it's like to fail and lose and experience that. That's the only way you're going to develop resilience. The reason why these people aren't resilient is because they don't push themselves. They don't get outside their comfort zone. They don't do the kinds of things that we did every day. I mean, those kids, those people couldn't even comprehend what it's like to go into a combat zone. And what's it like to have people that want to shoot at you? It's like, it's another day at the races. It's nothing. You know it. You don't think about it. But in a way, it's there, and it drives your resilience because you're aware of that. What's it like to move all the time? What's it like to la, 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 la? It's like, I don't know, but it makes you resilient. And you don't let go of that when you transition, or you'll lose it. You continue to push yourself in those ways that force you to deal with adversity and keep you alive and well.
That's good. I'll tell you what, Steve. Sure. No. It's good. This is good. I love the more senior you get, and it's relative, because the more senior you get in service, the more senior you get in time and experience, the more wealth of knowledge you have, the more you want to share. And I appreciate it, because that's all we want to do as senior enlisted or senior officers, is we want to share our good and bad and the ugly, so that you don't do it. But sometimes young people don't, and they just want it, whatever. Anyways, long story short, they don't even listen anyways. But we got a couple more really things. We got a couple more things. You said your wife talked about the calendar. I heard the other day, I was talking to another gentleman that retired from the Navy. He said, write things down. And I go, why? Because you're going to do this, and what we're doing now, we're reminiscing, but the ones that need true reminiscing are your children, the ones that don't know what you do, the ones that miss everything from you. And it really hit home, like, damn, that's like, do you just want my professional bio, or what's going on? Like, more in detail, but it's good. Like, your wife write those things down, let you know what it really was. But yeah, write things down for those that are listening. You also said the more senior you get, the less relevant your transition is. That's pretty deep. I don't know how many. You did say that the community that's important is probably E4 and below, and that's pretty factual, because that's the ones. Yeah. So be responsible, be an adult, and take ownership of your transition. I'll tell you what, you did that in the first year, so it seems like you're doing well. You're an epitome of transition. You look well and young.
I'm not young, but yeah, it's interesting though, talking about the whole, and I should probably expand on that whole piece about the transition experience, because as the more senior you are in terms of whether you're a non-commissioned officer or a commissioned officer, you have access to senior transition programs sometimes. Not all services do, but it's worth finding those, because the standard transition is geared toward largest amount of our population, which is the E4 and below crowd that are do a tour and they get out. I went to what was supposed to be a senior transition seminar. It was all E8s, E9s, O5s, O6s, and we had our jobs panel, it typified everything. So they called it a senior seminar, but it was really just, we were getting the same crap everybody else got. And for our jobs panel, they brought in a local sheriff who was looking to hire deputies and a guy who ran a local truck driving company who needed drivers. And it was the truck driving company guy who about halfway into it said, I don't know why I'm here. It's like, you guys are not going to come and work for me. You're all too old. You're all too senior. I'm not sure why they even brought me here. And that exemplified everything that, A for initiative, F for effort. I mean, come on, really? Because
That's crazy.
it's not that I have an issue with driving a truck. It's just like, you brought people. The sheriff's office is not going to hire a 52-year-old colonel or a 50-year-old colonel to go be a deputy. If they do, then I'm not sure I want to be in that department. The same thing, you don't want some old guy out driving or some old woman out driving trucks for you. It just doesn't make sense. And it's a waste of resources. It's a waste of our expertise. But so when you go to that transition experience, that's what makes a mentor so useful, because they tell you stuff that, they hook you up with the right people. They line you up with the right ideas, and they help you make smarter decisions as you go through that process. Sorry,
Sure.
I had to go back to that one.
No, it's good. That's actually good gouge. It's good for those senior folks. They're senior enlisted, officer, transitioning, mentor. There's never a time in your life where you're not learning. So that's really good. It's good gouge. Sir, you got about 30 seconds to a minute left. One last save round. Anything on your mind, you can hit it. The floor is yours. And after that, we're going to close. But I appreciate your time. Thank you for your service. Go ahead.
Yeah, we had said something when we were going back and forth about suicide prevention and what we can do with that. And that's always such a hard subject. And that gets back to knowing your people, understanding your people, staying in touch with your people. You can't always stop that from happening. I wish we could. I wish there was a one-size-fits-all solution for people who take their own lives. But there isn't, and all you can do is do the best that you can and look out for each other and stay in contact with each other. And hopefully that when those people need help, that you've given them the resources and the resources and the wherewithal where they know it's okay to reach out and talk to you. And even since I've retired, I've dealt with people who were suicidal. I've been on the phone with people in the middle of the night, like we all will anyway. That's a tough one, and there isn't a solution that fits everybody, so it's got to be flexible. All we can do is the best we can do and hope that we can save some people, and that people want to be saved along the way. They want to be given an opportunity to find their lives again. That's tough, but that means that the taking care of one another doesn't stop when you take the uniform off. It continues. It never ends. And all you can do is make yourself available, give your phone number out, let people know they can reach out to you, and that's the best you can do, I think.
I appreciate that. That's good. Because 2 days ago, my buddy, I guess it was 1 year anniversary, I guess you could say. But, I'd tell you what, you said be available, you leave your phone number out there. At the end of the day, though, we got to realize that the choice is not always ours. The choice is always theirs and yours, whoever takes that 30-inch step, and know that just like we tell young Marines and young service members now, hey, the choice is yours, but just know that every action has a reaction. And for those struggling with, and that was personal to me because he was my buddy, his family, his best friend. Everything's fixable. It's just if you're willing, you got to take that 30-inch step. And it's frustrating because it hits home. It really does. And I told you, you're trying to make me emotional. You're getting emotional.
That's a tough subject.
It is. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's true. It's always fixable. Everything's fixable. I promise. I think Steve can attest the same thing. Sir, you can say the same thing. I'm telling you, it's fixable. There's no way you need to do what you're going to do. Ladies and gentlemen, Doctrine Man, Mr. Steve Leonard, thank you for coming on. I appreciate your time. I'll reach out to you here later on. But ladies and gentlemen, this is Pit Talk, Pulling Pits and Opinions with your host, Gunny G, and Mr. Steve Leonard. Follow, like, subscribe everywhere you get your podcast on most social media platforms. Let us know how we're doing. Any criticism is good criticism. Ladies and gentlemen, me and Steve, we out. Sir, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, Gunny.
All right.
podcast featuring active service members who discuss their thoughts and opinions on various issues surrounding military life, current events, and history. The statements heard here are the opinions of its members and guests. These do not necessarily reflect the views of the Department of Defense and are not endorsed or sponsored in any way. Listener, viewer discretion advised.